Hey YouTube, what is up and welcome to Failed Tech. Yu-Gi-Oh! As a card game has a few quirks that differentiates it from other TCGs. The quirk that is relevant to this discussion is not having a set rotation. For those of you who don't pay any mind to other card games or perhaps don't play other card games, what this means is that we have access to the entire Yu-Gi-Oh! Card pool, with some restrictions of course in the form of the Forbidden and Limited list. But as opposed to being able to only play with certain cards from certain sets from X amount of sets ago, we have it pretty good. Magic, for example, as a game that does have set rotation depending on which format you play, has 4 core sets released each year, and once fall hits, the previous 4 sets get rotated out and leave the playable card pool, basically giving you a defined bracket of cards from a specific number of sets that you can use. Now, you may be thinking, what does this have to do with Mystical Refpanel? Well, this is kind of the set dressing. It sets up the scene for us because Yu-Gi-Oh's card pool is so diverse, we actually have the ability to look back into the card pool to find the hidden spice, the secret tech, the goo, the sauce that will give us the leg up on the general player base and steal us a few wins, sometimes resulting in a salty opponent. There is no better feeling than having the perfect counter to your opponent's play and have them ask you dumbfounded, "You play that? Or you main that?" It's pretty funny, and it is probably one of the best feelings you could have in a competitive card game. However, sometimes these tech cards don't pan out, and that's what this is about. For those of you wondering what made Mystical Refpanel relevant at the time, let's dig in. When the Dark Illusion released way back in August of 2016, Pot of Desires was released, and it definitely made some waves. Whether or not you think banishing 10 was neg or not is kind of irrelevant, and it's kind of funny how this is still a topic to this day. Newer players are still very averse to playing Pot of Desires because they think they're going to need those cards, but usually it would have meant you lost if you didn't resolve it. Anyway, at the time, it was essentially a pot of greed that was guaranteed to pop off because cards like Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring didn't exist. It was still a ship only on the horizon, as it wouldn't release until May of the following year. So without a way to make your opponent banish 10 and not draw 2, we had to scour our collective Yu-Gi-Oh conscience to find a counter to this powerful card. The answer was Mystical Refpanel. Or so we thought. For those of you that were unfamiliar with Mystical Refpanel, its effect reads as follows. Activate only when a spell card that targets one player is activated. The effect of that spell card is applied to the other player instead. Refpanel is a regular trap card, and for those of you that are quick learners, yes, this does do what you think it does. If your opponent would activate Pot of Desires, banishing 10 cards face down as cost, you could then chain Mystical Refpanel in the appropriate response window as Chain Link 2 and essentially steal their draw 2. Pretty powerful. As a result, Refpanel soon spiked in price, as most older tech cards do, but there are a few other factors that did help it climb its way to the top. We had been keeping an eye on the OCG for months prior, and Blue Eyes and Metal Foes were smacking up every other deck around and were putting up some consistent tops. Desires was at 3 in both of those decks, so it was definitely causing some panic. We also got a very strong ban list towards the end of August, which smacked down decks like Monarchs. And the last factor was that Mystical Refpanel was a secret rare from Duelist Revolution, which released all the way back in August of 2010. And it didn't have any other reprints since then. This was almost the perfect storm to cause hype. Short supply of an obscure secret from half a decade prior, format instability from a strong ban list, and almost guaranteed relevance, thanks to our OCG foresight. Unfortunately, this Category 5 hurricane that was Mystical Refpanel got downgraded to a tropical storm or maybe even a thunderstorm at most. Cards like Twin Twister, which had been released 6 months prior, and cards like Archfiend Eccentric pretty much guaranteed that the card would never resolve. Back row was a pretty serious threat back then, and when you had cards like Vanity's Emptiness, Solemn Strike, you would not wait for your opponent, and if you played a deck like Blue Eyes, which could actually generate plays by discarding, you would shotgun the Twin Twisters the first chance you got because you did not want to get striked and you did not want to get hit with a Vanity's Emptiness at an inopportune time. But there was another problem. If you decided to play Refpanel at 3, you were essentially counter-maining cards, hoping for the correct matchup. While Blue Eyes and Metal Foes did see quite a bit of play past August, there wasn't a 100% chance that you would play either deck. On top of that, you also need to fulfill quite a few conditions to resolve our shiny spell Mirror Boy. You had to go first, as Refpanel was a trap, and you had to open it. Then your opponent had to not open any back row removal, and finally they had to open Desires. Playing Refpanel was essentially different from playing cards like My Body as a Shield, because My Body as a Shield was what we hoped Refpanel would be. In the format where My Body as a Shield came out as a spicy tech, we were balls deep in Zoo Mirrors, and everybody knew that there was like a 99% chance that the deck you were going to play against, whether you went first or second or lost the die roll, was going to be Zodiacs, and they were definitely going to be putting up a Trident and popping one of your cards. My Body as a Shield was a quick play spell card, which allows you to activate it from hand on your turn, or you could set it to activate it during your opponent's turn. This was essentially everything Refpanel wasn't. Basically, you had to play 2 specific decks, then win the die roll, as well as open panel, and still be able to resolve your plays, as panel didn't advance your game state at all turn 1, and you had to also then hope your opponent drew bad, but not bad enough, because they did have to open Desires after all, and you had to do all of that to hope to resolve a +1. The problem was, it really didn't let you draw into that many interruptions anyway, as the only hand traps that saw play during that time were Max C and Effect Veiler. Ultimately, what it boiled down to is that there were just too many stipulations, too many hurdles you had to climb to resolve this card that didn't necessarily advance your game state or hinder your opponent's plays all that much. There were just better cards to play that actually did what it needed to. Would you rather play 3 Refpanels, or 3 Strikes, or Vanity's Emptiness, or Phoenix Wing Windblast? And that's just the other traps that were relevant at the time. That's not even counting the monster or spell cards you could have played instead. Refpanel has also been one of the most misunderstood cards in terms of what it actually does. It is very poorly worded, and from its wording, you would assume that it could basically flip a Raigeki and let you search off your opponent's engage. But that's wrong. It essentially only allows you to respond if life is modified for you or your opponent, if it lets a player draw, if it causes you to discard, or if it modifies an action that you can do, as an example, being unable to change your battle position. It's super confusing, and as a test for what I just said, let me know in the comments down below if you guys think Refpanel works on Dark Ruler no more. With that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed the story of failed tech, and if you have any other cards that you think didn't live up to the hype or just flat out didn't work in the format that they popped up in, let me know in the comments down below. I might turn this into a series if I can think up other cards that I think fit this criteria, and I think it'd be pretty fun to kind of crowdsource this one out, because my Yu-Gi-Oh knowledge is not as vast as some of you guys. And as always, thank you guys for watching this video, and if you did, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and click subscribe. I have a link to my Discord in the description down below, and if you really like these videos, you can click that bell icon to get notified whenever I make an upload. And as always, guys, please click subscribe because it helps. It's free, it's fun, and I'll see you guys in the next one.